Hello, I'm Heidi Lung, President of the Iowa Museum Association and Director of the Museum Studies program at the University of Iowa. In the fourth video of this series, we're going to look at historical thinking and apply that to teaching Iowa history resources. Our goals for this module include defining and describing historical thinking and inquiry-based learning approaches as they apply to teaching Iowa history resources. Additionally, I'll demonstrate how to use question storming to introduce a social studies or history lesson. Finally, I'll share tools and resources that support close looking and exploration of museum primary sources like those found in the Teaching Iowa History. Teaching Iowa History is an initiative that brings museums and communities together, and the goal is to develop K through 12 lessons that connect students to Iowa's history. The fact is that we are historical beings as people, and our students come to the classrooms able to do historical thinking. And so when we talk about what historical thinking is, what we're really talking about are students learning how to investigate historical questions by employing strategies such as sourcing, contextualizing, corroborating, and close reading. And so these are the main structures of historical thinking. Historical thinking is different than simply memorizing historical facts. In historical thinking, students evaluate the trustworthiness of multiple perspectives on historical issues, and they learn to make historical claims backed by documentary evidence. Asking questions is one way that students can begin to explore primary source documents. By looking closely with a critical, inquisitive lens, students can employ their own experience and prior knowledge to help make connections between the present and the past. Using primary sources as the focus for questioning engages students and empowers them to take responsibility for their own learning. It also helps students to learn to analyze and synthesize history. Truly, the most important part of historical thinking is providing students the opportunity to determine what is significant and relevant from a mass of information. Which brings us to inquiry-based learning. If one of the goals of social studies education is for students to develop their historical thinking skills, there may be no skill more fundamental for students to learn than that of question formulation. As you begin to explore the Teaching Iowa History website and primary source database, you'll begin to see the treasures that are a part of this project. With over 1,000 objects from museums across the state, each object has the potential to be the center of any classroom activity. In Module 4, you'll find an activity called Question Storming, and this activity goes really well with the Teaching Iowa History primary sources. This activity is a great way to get students to look closer and to also practice their question writing skills. It's kind of a brainstorming activity, but in the form of questions. I facilitate this activity not just with elementary and middle school students, but I've been facilitating this activity with my university students, and I've utilized it in professional development trainings and with museum professionals. And what's really great about this activity is we're not only developing questions, but we're improving on our questions. And then we strategize on how we can use these questions to meet our needs. And reflection is a huge part of this activity as well, because the whole process of developing and improving and strategizing the questions is a process that we can learn from. Here's an object from the primary source database that I just love, and it really shows the diversity of objects within the Teaching Iowa History primary source database. This is a work of art that was included in the Blandin Art Museum's exhibit, Art as Medicine, Artists React to Present State. And this exhibit as Blandin explains, was an attempt to provide a space where creative voices could be seen and shared. The state of the world in 2020 seemed overwhelming and chaotic, but out of that, great love and beauty could still be expressed. Art is essential, especially during times that are full of stress and anxiety. Artwork can be medicine for the mind and soul. And so I thought we could practice a little bit of this activity called question storming with this object. And you can see here there are some specific rules for producing questions. The activity has you ask as many questions as you can and write them down. Do not stop to discuss, judge, or answer any question. Write down every question exactly as it's stated. And finally, change any statement into a question. And so if you want to take a moment and pause this video, you can start to do the activity yourself looking at the artwork from the Blandin. If I were to facilitate this project with a group, I would first break my group into small groups and I would have them work individually initially to create their own individual list of questions. Then what I would do is I would have them come back together after a certain amount of time and I would have them bring their list of questions together. They would see how many questions the same that they had asked, and they would create a collated list with all of their questions. And they would go through the effort of improving those questions based on the activity guidelines. And you can take a look at that. And it's always helpful too, I think, at the beginning of this facilitation to give the participants a little bit of a guide as to what kinds of questions. And so in this case, you could not have a guiding theme at all or topic, but the artwork itself could induce those questions. Or you might say, you might read the piece that the Blandin has posted on the primary source content page. You might read that and have students use that as a place to interpret the artifact and object. And so, as you begin to use these objects, these primary sources within your classroom through activities like this question storming, I think one of the things that still surprises me, even after 25 years of working and exploring and interacting with audiences when we look at objects, is the fact that how powerful they truly are and how important they are because, when it comes to history, again, reading our history from a textbook is a very passive way of learning. But being able to look at an object like this and develop questions that must go and pass through the sieve of our own selves, our own experience, that's really where these activities have the most impact. We're very lucky in Iowa to have such a wide variety of primary sources in museums across our state, and that they've participated in this project so that we can make these objects accessible. This particular object, I think, is an excellent example of how students can really use historical thinking when they start to think about themselves as a part of history. This activity is also important in that it allows students to hear the perspectives of others and to see perhaps points of view that are different from their own. I think it is a perfect example to show the wealth of the primary sources within the Teaching Iowa History database. Finally, I just want to point out that there are many resources on the Module 4 page. If you take a look, there's resources on historical thinking and inquiry-based learning activities. Be sure to check those out. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to us. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you continue to follow our professional development series. Have a great day. Museum on!